Good morning, good morning, good morning, Inman readers. Guess who I'm partnering with here on this new show called Provoke? The infamous, the under 30 with the over 60, Danielle Riley. Did I pronounce your name right, Danielle?
You did. You did. It's pretty easy, though.
I didn't want to make a mistake out of the gate. Let me ask you a question, Danielle. First of all, you were a broker, you were a
Yes.
realtor, you were brought up in real estate, but you have an interesting story. Your dad, who I assume is over 60 like me, maybe,
Yes.
he works for you. How does that
Yes.
work? Hi, Dad. Hi, Danielle's dad. I'm sure you're watching.
No, actually, I sent him to lunch because we're getting the carpets installed in the new office today, and he's in my office temporarily, but I'm his boss, and it's super awesome. So, yeah, it's been a fun month.
How would you handle an HR situation where you had to fire your dad? That'd be a tough one, huh?
I almost fired him the first week, to be honest with you. Only because he sold so many houses, and I'm trying to like set the brokerage up and do recruitment calls and all the bookkeeping, and he just kept handing me all these purchase offers, and I'm like, I looked at him and I go, stop selling so many effing houses. Like, I need to do this. So it's been interesting, to say the least. It's been fun, but yeah, it's it's always tough working with a parent. But now that I'm his boss, it's a whole new ball game. So
Yeah, and tell me really quick, you're one of the 30 under 30, NAR's list that's such a prestigious list, someone under 30 who's like a, top 30 in the country somehow. What are your ambitions now? Now you own your own brokerage, you got a few agents, you joined Better Homes and Gardens. Are you wanting to be like in the top 5 of the list somewhere of big brokers,
yeah.
or is it build
Well,
them up?
I obviously want to make it on the most influential people in real estate Inman list. I would love to be on that. I kind of had this idea at one point, maybe I wanted to be the president of NAR, because I'm very involved in a lot of different, local, state, and also going for the national YPN advisory board for next year, fingers crossed. But now I'm turning 29 in a week from tomorrow, actually, and with the brokerage and everything else that I'm doing, I don't know. I had all these dreams and goals, and now I'm kind of just focused on what I'm doing right now. So I guess we'll see how things play out over the next few months.
That brings up a good, let's go over some of the hot stories of the week. We have a list of the hottest stories of the week, and we had a story by Brian Buffini, and he said, what separates the agents from the pros? And he nailed what you just said, which is consistency, focus, don't get distracted. I'm always amazed, how does someone build a successful company and get involved with all these trade associations? I assume there's opportunity in all that, but don't you building a new business? I remember when I started all these crazy companies I started, I had to be laser focused. Like, I had to ignore everything, including my family, including the dog. I don't have any clue how anyone could build a business without being boo-boo.
Yeah, it's been tough the last month, especially because the brokerage is my first and most important focus right now. But I don't want to lose sight of the RPAC committee and the YPN advisory board and, all of these really important things that are not only going to help me grow the brokerage, but get me on that path of being a leader in the industry. So I do best when I'm under pressure. So if I have no time to do anything, I get everything done. I'm just one of those people. So I've been working 20 to 22 hours a day for the last 2 months. But I did a girls' night last night, and I still am traveling and doing all my other stuff. And I don't know, I'm doing it. I don't know how, but I'm doing it. So.
By the way, we have a real parochial show today. You're in upstate New York, and I'm in Manhattan, so we're going to have to kind of spread our wings and being so, laser focused on this part of the world. But, it reminds me, I was under 30 working on a project one time in my life, and I was working so hard that I parked my car at the Oakland airport. I took a box out of the trunk, I checked it, and I went to my flight, flew to Seattle to Microsoft, and when I landed and got my rent-a-car, I realized, car, where did I park my car in Oakland? I left it running out in front of the airport. I was
my God.
overworked and so stressed, and I called the airport guy, head of security, goes, well, you know, occasionally people do actually park their car in front of the airport by accident, but I've never seen anyone park it and leave it running, so my car was running. So don't ever get too stressed out. You leave your car in front of the airport running.
Well, actually, on my way back from ICSF, I landed Saturday. I quit my company Sunday, and I opened my new company Monday. And when I got off the plane, I could not remember where I parked my car. So it's already happened to me. It wasn't running though. I found it.
So let's move to a controversial one. Lee Arnold, one of our favorite people in the real estate industry, out of San Diego, I think, he posted something on lab coats, which is in itself controversial, like thousands of agents answering each other's questions and helping each other out, and some say it's not crud, and some say it's super crud, and whatever it is. He posted something about, hey, I got an open house, no one lives there. Why does the poor buyer have to go through the seller agent, go to the agent, to the agent, to get to the agent, to go to the house? Why can't we cut out all that stuff? And for me, it's like made all the sense in the world. Well, people firestorm and went after Lee's throat. What's your take on this, Danielle? What is for the realtor and what is for the customer?
Okay, so I'm going to give you a quick story. I had a listing. The sign hadn't gone up yet. The neighbors hadn't been notified. I went over there the day before it was going into the MLS to let a contractor in to do some work. Next door neighbor saw me, didn't know who I was, and called the police. Police showed up with canine dogs and guns pointed at me. And I'm like, oh, I'm just the realtor. We have the house up for sale. I gave him my, business card. Everything was fine. But I am 100%, like maybe even 120%, completely disagree with his post for a bunch of reasons. First of all,
you think Lee was wrong?
Yes, definitely. Okay. First of all, the listing agent needs to know who is going into that property and when, whether or not the lockbox is sending them an email or whatever. What if they're talking to the owner and there's someone showing the house and the owner doesn't know it and the owner shows up there to move stuff out or whatever? What if there's an alarm system and you need the code? What if the owner's over there moving stuff out and the owner has a gun and someone walks in the house and the owner shoots the person? What if there's a dog that's there? I mean, there's so many variables. It's like you can't just assume that just because a house is vacant that you can just walk in and show it at any time. And I am very adamant about that.
That reminds me of the day when people wouldn't post addresses on listings on the internet. There's all these exceptional weird cases that they say could happen if the address is on the internet, and all that was hogwash. They're all excuses because the agent wanted to be in the middle of the deal and be selling and pitching all the way along. Let's get the buy. If I'm a seller, I don't care. I want as many buyers in here whenever they want to be here because I want to sell the house. Why don't we remove all that friction, all this calling and contacting? And come on.
Because
there's got to be a way to manage the exceptions to make it easier for them.
No, I've been doing this almost 10 years now, and I cannot tell you the amount of times that agents have showed up to listings, whether it was vacant or tenant occupied or owner occupied. Not only do they show up without appointments, but they just walk in because the lockbox is there and they just think that they have every right to do it because they have a key. No, and the biggest problem that it causes is it causes the listing agent to get a phone call from the seller screaming at them. And it just happened to me actually 2 weeks ago. My sellers texted me and said, hey, we want to go over there and move some stuff out. Nobody's showing the house today, right? And I said, yep, no one's showing the house. Sure enough, agent takes it upon themselves to show up at the house, and don't I look like an idiot? So no, you're not going to get me to back down from this one because it's happened too many times, and it is what it is.
It's about not agreeing. Provoke. Speaking of provoke, Danielle, we're putting the word out right now. We need the most provocative guest for our second show, which will be next week. And so we didn't want to start out with that provocative guest, but we're asking our listeners and readers at Inman, send us your provocative guest. Who should we have on first? We're not going to grill them. We're going to have fun with them, but someone that would stir it up, by just their face being on the Inman channel, it would stir up people's, either love or anxiety. So let's move on to one other thing. We had a poll, an Inman poll, and it surprised some people. The poll was for who in the real estate industry, who do they think should be president of the United States? And we had a more than ripe sample of Inman readers, and I can see Danielle pulling back now because she can't be political, and I respect that. But the poll basically said Trump was the favorite. It was like 46-32 Hillary, and then Gary Johnson, who I think may have blown everything yesterday with a mistake on television, but he came up at 11%. And I guess not a surprise, a cross section of America, young, a lot of small businesses, who knows? But that was the result of the poll. Do you want to comment, or you want to just move on to the next one?
I'm not surprised. I think a lot of realtors and real estate agents will naturally gravitate towards the Republican Party for financial reasons, if nothing else. But yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that.
Cool. Let's move on. Teresa Boardman, one of Inman's writers, he constantly stirs it up and has real insight. Practicing realtor, sells real estate, has been doing it for a long time. She wrote a story called "Stop Taking Rejection Personally." What can you add to that one?
Oh, I loved it. It was one of the best articles I've read in a long time. That was something I learned very early on in my career. My first deal that ever died, I cried for 3 days. And, I've had family members and friends and people I had been working with for months on end, years on end, not use me in a transaction. And that is a big thing you have to learn, especially if there's any newer agents watching right now. You have to grow very, very thick skin. You just have to understand that there's going to be really bad days, and then it's going to be followed by a bunch of really good days. I had 2 deals fall apart at a closing table a few months ago, and then about 2 hours later, I got a message from Joe asking me to be an Inman ambassador for San Francisco. So that's how life is. It's not just real estate. Good things happen, bad things happen, and you have to learn you have to be emotional in this business, because the deals and the transactions and the clients and the families are very emotionally tied to it, and you want to create that emotional bond, but you can never let it affect you personally.
Hard to walk that talk, though, right?
I think if you get rejected and you do enough deals that die, I would say probably within my first 6 to 12 months of the business, I had grown a very thick skin. And I'm at the point now where something my dad taught me, was the very first thing he ever taught me about real estate, was never live and die by any one deal. So you can't count your commissions before they come in. And you can't always count on deals closing. You can't always count on people buying houses from you. So if you can learn that early on, it's going to make you a lot more successful, because that rejection is not going to drain you. You'll be able to move on to the next thing and be positive for it.
My writers often, they're paid. They get paid vacation. We participate in 401ks. Every 2 weeks, the 15th and the 30th of the month, there's something that shows up in their bank account from them being on payroll. And whenever they start to kind of make fun of realtors or what they're about, I say, stop it. You have no clue what it's like to wake up every morning with no paid vacation, no one contributing to your 401k except yourself, nothing in your bank account guaranteed the 15th and the 30th of the month. This is a tough friggin' job.
It is.
Give them some slack. Don't support their bad behavior by any means, but let's be real. This is not an easy gig. Let's get into a gnarly issue this week that was quite controversial. Our excellent Inman reporter, Andrea Brambilla, who did a really good look at dual agency. And that's the idea. Can a buyer and seller really be fairly represented when they're working right next to each other in the same brokerage? And she looked at this legal case in California that's very complicated. It involves Coldwell Banker. What's your thoughts on dual agency? What is this good or bad for the consumer? Good or bad for the industry? How should we think about it? How do we manage it?
Okay, well, the case in California, first of all, like everybody in that whole situation was wrong. that was clearly, you know, I read through it very carefully. It was clearly, you know, you have a buyer that's not speaking English very well. You have a huge discrepancy in the amount of square footage. You know, just one thing after another. I think that's a very, you know, far out case of dual agency. My take on dual agency personally is that if you're a good agent and you can explain it correctly to both sides, you can do it. You just have to be careful, and you have to be very, very, very specific to both the buyer and the seller. I do it a lot, actually. I'm pretty good at it because I'm, you know, I kind of have my spiel about, you know, this is how, you know, this is what I have to do for you, and this is what I have to do for the other person. And I always tell people, look, you know, if I'm talking to the seller, I'm not going to tell you what the buyer is going to come up to. And then I tell the buyer the same thing, that I'm not going to tell you what the seller's bottom line is. So I make it very clear that I am working for both parties. You know, and in my specific situation with running a team, a lot of times my team members are selling my listings, which makes us all dual agents, and that we're technically two agents representing both sides of the transaction. It becomes even more complicated at that point. And I think that, you know, whether you're a broker, as an agent, whatever the case may be, if you're explaining it clearly, you can do it, but it's not something that you're going to be able to do right off the gate. You got to really kind of know your way around the business and know how to talk to people. So that's my take on it.
So as a seller, I'm not too upset about it, but as a buyer, I just recently made the mistake of using the seller's agent. I'm halfway through the transaction, and all I saw was conflict after conflict after conflict. And I said, never, ever again. I want representation. It's not that I didn't trust the person. I think they tried their best, but it's inherently difficult. You know, it's like it's like if Inman News advertisers wrote our copy, you know, or it's full of conflicts, and it's hard to sort out. So it's the tough one. Read the story.
You know, as an agent, if I have, you know, when I'm in my agent shoe and I'm sitting there with a buyer and they're saying, well, why don't I just call the listing agent, because the listing agent can get me in and the listing agent can get me the best deal, I totally flip the script and I say, well, if you were going to court and you were going to sue somebody, would you use that person's attorney? No, you would get your own attorney. So when I'm sitting with a buyer, it's a whole different ball game. But again, if you've been in the business a long time and you've done enough deals, you can do it if you do it the right way. But when you're talking to a buyer, it's definitely a good way to use that strategy to get them to use you as a buyer's agent rather than letting them go right to the listing agent.
Good. Hey, Danielle, let's look at really quick. Chris Smith did a speech at Connect, the boiler room strategy. He basically goes back to old school dialing for dollars, and he walks through in a really fun presentation how to do that. We also have Joe Rand of Better Homes and Gardens out here in the East, who we all love, who's one of the best guys in the industry. He makes the case that real estate is about service, not sales, and he has a really good video of his presentation at Connect. Those are all available to all of you select members at Inman. Go and check that out. Just on the deck next week, Danielle, is we got a piece on Brexit. Oh, what could Brexit have to do with the USA? Well, there is a story. It talks about what's going on with the real estate markets overseas because of that. And I think what that's about, it's kind of preparation for all of us. If the election goes a certain way, how much uncertainty will there be? So I think the lessons from Brexit are the wild proclamations and insanity, how did it manifest itself? There's also a really good piece coming out on Nextdoor. Do you use Nextdoor up there in upstate New York? It's an app that allows neighbors to communicate, and there's a controversy brewing around Nextdoor. A lot of agents use it to stay connected with their clients, so that's a good one. There's a profile of Matt Parker. He's the author of Real Estate Smart. He specializes in talking to clients about downsizing their homes. Get a smaller home, and then we have a thing on buyer's agents, and we have a profile of an LA real estate firm called Gibson International. So that's some stuff to look for next week. And Danielle, what do we want for this guest? Let's keep putting out the request here. Who do you think? I mean, let's not put out names, but who do you think would be the type of person? Do we want to under 30, over 60? Do we want to
I don't really care about their age as much as I want somebody that continually stirs the pot. Like, they never stop stirring the pot. And I have a couple people in mind, and I've already started compiling a list of people that already want to come on the show. So you guys are going to be looking at some really awesome guests coming up over the next, I have like 7 guests lined up already, I think. But yeah, I want to see someone that is, I want to get this Provoke, this title of this show. Let's make it happen. So that's what I'm looking for. So I'd love to see what everyone else thinks. Throw some names out. Maybe we can do a poll. I think that would be a good way to do it. Get some names out there and do a poll.
That's fantastic. So we want ideas for what to talk about, and we want provocative guests, and we're going to keep coming back until we bore you all to tears and we find out no one's listening. But I don't think that will happen. Under 30, over 60. Provoke, provocative, great industry that we're always trying to make better and better and better and better. Danielle and I agree on about half the things, I think, today, and we'll see what happens next week. Hey, Danielle, good luck. Don't fire your dad today. It's the weekend. It's sad. You don't want to do it on a Friday, okay?
Well, I need him to keep selling, so I'm probably not going to fire him at least for another year or 2.
Okay, well, great to you. Hey, Inman News Gang, have a great weekend. If you're ever bored, you can go on Inman.com, and there's thousands of stories and videos about everything imaginable. And we really appreciate you reading us, and thanks for being here today. And if you have any feedback, like do this and don't do this, and Brad, don't put your glasses on because the computer shows in your glasses, or Danielle, you should pull your hair back, whatever you want to tell us.
I can pull my hair back. But it's so pretty. I don't want to pull it back. Yeah, no, I'm not pulling my hair back. Don't tell me what to do.
I will not. I wouldn't think I'd do it. And I will not give you an old person lecture, I promise.
Okay, good.
And by the way, our producer on this show is the wonderful Emret at Inman News. And I gave her an old man's lecture this morning before we started. She didn't deserve it. She's wonderful. She produced the show. Thank you, Emret.
Thank you, Emret.